To get us set up for the advanced movement system integration, let's make a new scene so that we still have this sticking around in case we like it and we want to keep it there in our project. So what I'm going to do is actually just create a brand new scene here. I'm going to call this Advanced Playground for now. And what I want to do with it is, well, make sure my playground's saved. I'm going to just copy all the components of my playground, jump over to my Advanced Playground, delete everything that's there, and paste my basic playground in here. Contents. Now I have the advanced one, and one thing I need to do with this is take my player and remove the simple control by right-clicking on the component and removing it entirely, because we're going to do a completely different set of controls. The next thing I want us to be able to do is actually, I think I forgot to talk about this in our previous video, the package manager. We want a different package in here called the Cinemachine package. We need to get this downloaded and installed. I somehow missed that in that previous getting things up and running video. So let's get this pulled in, Cinemachine in our package manager, download it, install it, and I'll be back with you in a sec when I get it up and running in this project. Oh, looks like it's done already. I didn't have to pause the recording here. So perfect, Cinemachine's now in place. Once yours is done, pause the video till it is. You should see the Cinemachine button up above here that has some options. We'll get back to this shortly. What I want you to do for now is head into your resources, go to your scripts folder, and we're going to look for our advanced player controller script that we are going to drag into our project. And I think that's all we want for now. Yes, it is. Let's drag this in so we have access to the script, and maybe let's pop it open by double clicking on it just to kind of take a peek. It doesn't look particularly that much longer than the previous one, but there's quite a lot of more nuanced code in here that's quite a bit more advanced. I'm definitely not going to talk through all the details of this script. We're just going to try our best to use it effectively. And just like before, we're going to take this script and add it to our character and take a look at what some of the options are that we have to work with and that we might have to interface. We have a controller that we need to link to. You know what? We know how to do this already. I'm going to drag this down. Actually, let me show you one thing here. I don't actually have to drag this controller directly. I can just drag my player generically on here and it will determine the controller itself. Maybe an easier way, or even click on this dot to the side and just see what options I have here. I also need information about a camera, which I can't connect just yet because we're going to deal with the camera a little bit differently in this scene. One thing I actually need to do for this advanced player is take the camera and disconnect it from my player by clicking and dragging it back into the main scene. So this camera is now disconnected from the player. Make sure that it is. It'll be necessary for how Cinemachine works. I have a speed value. I also have something called a turn smooth time that will allow us to tweak some of the smoothness of character movement that we probably won't touch overall. I've also provided you with an option to turn on or off smooth motion. We'll see what this looks like shortly. And of course we have gravity and jump height, but I've also provided you the option to toggle on or off the ability to jump in the first place. You know what? Let's just attach the basic camera for now, just to try out and see what this looks like out of the box. And one thing that I see here is that my character kind of moves in a bit of an 8-directional manner, kind of snapping back and forth as I press the arrow keys, and the mouse doesn't seem to do anything at all. I also have lost the mouse entirely. It's because I've locked it to the screen for this type of movement. If you press escape, you'll see your mouse reappearing, and try to turn on smooth mover. You'll see that now the character turns significantly more smoothly. Still going to get blocked by the walls just like before, and we have to do something else to get our camera up and running. One last thing, if I press space, jumping is working. If I hit this and I press space, no more jumping. So a few more options in here to work with. So far, not particularly different overall, but we'll see once we get our camera up and running just how different this really is. And let's do so now. Head up to Cinemachine, and we're going to choose Create Free Look Camera. This is a wonderful library of tools that has a whole bunch of complex functionality for working with camera systems in Unity. And now we have two camera objects. Our main camera, which now has this little icon beside it and some new information, Cinemachine Brain, attached to us. And then we have this Cinemachine Free Look 1 camera tool here as well. And we need both of these to exist. If we head back to our player really quick, this main camera, we want to make sure is the camera connected to our player, because that's going to allow our controls to work in the way that they're designed. but all the options that we want to work with aren't actually in here under our main camera or our player. The settings that we want to play with are under our free look camera in Cinemachine. So a quick guide of something that we need to first work with is mostly we're going to ignore a lot of these settings. If you go on to explore more about controlling camera in some of your specialization work, then you can explore this tool in more depth. But I want to guide you through just a few things that we need to pay particular attention to in getting this advanced control scheme up and running well. The first one is we have to connect a couple things. We need to follow and look at something in our scene. And lucky for us, it's the same thing in this scenario. It's our player for both. So I'm going to drag the player under follow and look at. And I should now see, if you can see my gizmo here, these red 3 circles surrounding my player. And you should see it on yours as well, if you're pausing and following along with these steps, which you definitely should be. Right now, the lowest circle should be the smallest, the upper one should be kind of mid-range, and the middle one should be the biggest. But we're going to do some tweaking of these settings. Let's make sense of what these things are doing though. Basically, these are setting the low, mid, and high point ranges the camera can move to with mouse movement, as well as how far away from the player the camera will be at each part of the range. If I press run and I move my camera in and out, you'll see that it kind of moves in and out. And now, why do I have this weird overlay on my scene? Well, it's because my Cinemachine is selected. If I click off of it, I can now just see my scene kind of naturally. And as I move my mouse left and right, I pan around and orbit around my player in a very smooth way. And as I pull down, I zoom in. And as I pull up, I zoom out. And it has this kind of nice automatic wrapping to how it follows and tracks around the player. And we can customize this to our heart's content. I'm going to select my Cinemachine Free Look 1 again, and I'm going to take a look down a little bit further to, well, first of all, my x-axis, where I like to turn off invert. I think that is more intuitive to how I move my mouse around. You can turn on or off both of these inverts as best suits your preference for gameplay. However, the thing we really want to focus on are these orbits. And what we want to do with these is actually look at the top, middle, and bottom rigs and change them so that we have a camera setting that works for our design purposes. The height determines how high above the player those things are. So the low one down here, it might be hard to see on your screen here. I'll see if I can go kind of down below so you can kind of see it from down up. The sky will have a nice different color there so that you can see it more clearly. I tend to like to have my low bottom rig a little bit higher, usually around 1. I kind of like to have my medium around 3 and the high around 5, if not higher sometimes. So I'm going to set those as my values for now. And something that I also noticed was that in the low setting, when my camera was down close to the player, it was zoomed in really close. So I can increase the radius of this, and I'm going to do it quite dramatically. I have hiccups apparently. Just ignore those the best you're able to. And I'm going to have my camera, just to experiment, kind of narrow in the higher up that I get. And press run and see what happens. Now, let's deselect this. As I get close to my character, I'm further away than I was before. And it kind of has this, hopefully, slightly nicer kind of, I don't get quite as zoomed up on my character as I did before. However, we're still kind of pretty close and get kind of, I like that kind of level at the back, but I still feel like we're a little bit close. So what I might do is just go back and experiment, and I recommend that you do as well. I'm going to double this value. I'm going to double this. I'm going to double this to make those radiuses even further away and just get a sense of what this feels like. And now I kind of have that same range, and as I go above, I zoom in a little bit, but from behind I have a bit more space. And now I'll actually press the mouse keys, the keyboard keys, and move this is without the smooth motion. And notice that as I pan my mouse, it turns my character, and pressing the keys moves me from side to side, back and forth. And I have my beautiful character now smoothly moving around the world, able to jump as well, because I haven't turned off that setting yet. And what if I experimented with going back to my player, turning smooth motion on, and going back into the scene here? And maybe I prefer the feel of this. It definitely feels different. One more thing I notice here for me is that top-down view just feels a little bit close still. So I'm going to go back to it and go to my top rig. I'm going to bring this up quite a bit higher, and I'm going to fatten this radius quite a bit and try to be zoomed out. I just see what this looks like. Deselect that free look setting, and now as I go up, I actually zoom out to a wider perspective, so I can kind of get nice, close, and personal to the side and higher up. And to me, this is starting to feel quite a bit better. Now, these obstacles can't be reached yet for jumping, but now I can kind of get the sense that a decent feeling game could be developed from this. And I have some options to play with in terms of some of the settings of smooth or jumping. I have gravity and height settings. I have my character speed settings. And I even have the ability to have my camera have these customized settings with them as well. One last thing I want to show you briefly here is that if I get really close to, let's say, a wall like this, and the camera now clips through the wall and I can't see my player anymore, which might be all right for you in your game, but we have a little tool we can turn on that allows us to bypass that. If you go to your free look cam and scroll down to the bottom where it says extensions, you can select a Cinemachine Collider special tool. What this does is it detects obstacles. For now, we just want to leave it on default. And what we want to have it do is have a strategy for how it clips or doesn't clip with the walls. Preserve camera height. Well, let's take a look here. If I have the camera get blocked by a wall, it's going to try to keep the camera at the level of the player and shift it around to try to keep that player in that same level that I had it before in terms of height by kind of moving it in or out in a way. Kind of gets a bit zoomed in there, but at least I keep sight of my character. A little bit flickery there, but it's an option. You could also try some of the other ones. One that I really like is pull camera forward, which just kind of pulls the camera closer to the player, and it tries to have the least interference with jitteriness possible. So it just kind of like moves in front of that wall, jumps there, jumps back out of the way so that I never lose sight of my player with those walls that are there. So you can play around with some of those settings. Maybe you prefer them, maybe you don't. There's some other things you can mess around with to tweak as well down in these settings that allow it to have a bit more time and smoothness in moving to the camera that you might find makes it look and feel a little bit better. But for now, what I want you to do is make sure that you have a scene that has this advanced control scheme fully working, feeling good in a set of combination of settings that works for you, as you'll be doing in many projects to come. And maybe, just maybe, this is the control scheme you'll want to implement in your projects later on in the course. You're more than welcome to steal this from me and implement it on your own, or adapt portions of it later as well. See you in the next video.